So now that we know a little bit more about selecting new colors, let's explore more on how to actually save those colors and use them for later uses. So when we want to save colors, gradients, patterns, and other effects, we're going to actually do that through the Swatches panel. So we can find that over here in the panel dock. Looks kind of like a rectangular palette. You can also go up here and go to Window and Swatches. So I'll go ahead and click on that. And so what we're looking at are all the default colors that come with the essentials. And then right below that, you probably have a folder right here that says grays. And then there's pretty much this group of, I think it's 10 or 11 different grayscale colors that you can use. So let's just go over the basics of creating new swatches, creating color groups, and then saving those. So the basic way of creating a new swatch is selecting an object with a certain fill or stroke and then coming over to this new swatch icon. And if I click once, it'll bring up some more options. So I can choose the type of color I want this to be. So process color is the most common color used for most art projects. Every once in a while you might do a printing screen press project where you need to use spot color, but in this case keep this as process color. Right here, this check for global, this means that when you change this color in your swatches panel, it will affect all of that same color hue in a file. So you want to be careful when you're using this because sometimes if you start to change one of your swatches, it's going to affect everything. So I'm just going to keep this unchecked for now. And then we can further refine our color either using the CMYK, HSB, RGB type of color mode. So we could come in here and individually kind of fine tune the red, green, and blue or the CMYK. Also other kinds such as lab color and web safe RGB. So this all depends on what project it is you're producing. I'll just go ahead and keep this as, I'll actually go to the HSB. I use this one quite often, and I'll just bring up the brightness and bring up the saturation without bringing up the gamut warning. Also in Illustrator CC, there's this new option that you can have checked. It's called Add to My Library. This is connected to your Adobe CC account, and this is really convenient because that means that this will follow you around wherever you go, depending on the computer that you're on. And essentially, you would just log into Creative Cloud, and then all of your swatches would be saved along with that. I'm not going to get into the details of that, so I'm just going to uncheck this and assume that we just need to learn how to save our swatches in a more traditional way. I'll click OK, and you can see that swatch popped up right here. So it starts to fill this list of colors. Let's go ahead and do that again. I'll click on this color here, and this time I will double click, change maybe some of the properties of this color with the color picker. I'll click OK, and instead of hitting new swatch, I'm just going to actually click on this fill and hold down and drag it over to the swatches panel and then release. And that is yet another way of creating swatches. Okay, I'm going to move over here to this group of colors, and we're going to learn how to make a color group. So the first thing in creating a color group is you need to make a folder for a new color group, which is located right here. Go ahead and create a new color, and I'll name this warm greens. And for now, we are just going to use selected swatches. So I'll check that and then click OK. And I need to first select the warm group. Then I will click on the first color. So I will click on this first color. Then I will select the warm group, and then I will click new swatch. I'll click OK. And you can see that added it to the color group. So I can do that again for the next one. Select this one, select the folder, add new. I'll do that to the next one. Select the color, select the group, add new swatch, and click OK. Okay, the other way I can do this is I can select this color. Okay, come over to my color fill, click, hold down and drag. I'm still holding down, and I'm moving this right next to that last color in the color group, and then I'll release. I'm going to go ahead and make this a little bit easier to see. So I'll go into my options icon and click, and I will go from a small thumbnail view to a large thumbnail view, and we'll kind of drag this panel down. I'm actually going to pull it off of the dock, close these other ones so it's easier to see what we're doing. So I'll do that again. I'll select the color, come over to the color fill, and click and drag. I'll come over to the color fill, click and drag, pull that right next to that one, and I'll do it one more time. Click and drag, Alright, so that's our first color group. Alright, so let's try to find another way of doing that that is a little bit easier. So all I did was create a square and then fill it, and then I went through the color picker to try to find the colors I wanted, and then I did that for all 6 of these. Now I want to add these all together in a color group. If I select these all with the black arrow and then come over here to new color group, I'll select that. I'll name this one neutral greens, and instead of selecting the selected swatches, I'm going to select selected artwork. I don't want to convert the process colors to global just yet, and I'll leave the include swatches for tints and click OK. And you can see when I did that, it added all of those colors into a group. The only thing is it's not quite ordered. I would like them ordered, so I can click and drag these swatches into the order that I want. So I'm just clicking, holding down, and dragging those into place. Cool, let's try that one more time. So I'll actually select all of these, and then I'll click new color group. I'll name this blue greens, selected artwork, and everything else is okay. And there we go, we added a new color group. Alright, so let's learn how to actually save these colors to bring them up later for when we're working on a project. So the first thing I need to do is I need to decide which colors stay and which colors go in this whole panel. I might decide that I actually don't want these 3 colors in here. So I'm going to hold down on the command key and just click some of the colors that I don't want. And then I'll come down over here and I'll click the delete swatch icon. Okay. So I want all of these swatches for future use. I'm going to come all the way up to the corner, select the none swatch, then I'll hold down on the shift key and come all the way down to the right hand corner and select that swatch. And then I can either come over to this portion or come over to the options icon. It doesn't matter. And I'm going to go to Save Swatch Library, and in this case we're going to save as ASE. The ASE files are easier to access across all the Adobe programs, so I would highly recommend using ASE. Click that, and then it's going to ask where do we want to save these. I'll just name these Next Colors, and by default it wants to put it in the swatches folder of your program folders. Now that's okay when you're working on a computer at home, but every once in a while you might need to bring those colors along with you, so you could easily save this on a flash drive or on a cloud drive, but just know the extension is going to be an ASE file. So I'll click save, and I'll just click OK on this one. It's just letting me know some things. And that is how you save your color swatches. If I need to come back into Illustrator and load those swatches, I would go through the same icons. So I could go to here, the options icon, and I could go to Open Swatch Library. And we're going to go over the libraries in just a second, but what I would do is come down here to the other library, and this is where I would find that color swatch file that I just saved right here, Next Colors. And when you open it in that way, it puts it in its own panel, and the tab has the name that you saved it at. So I could actually close the swatches panel and I could just use my own colors now. Alright, so that's a good way of knowing how to save your own colors. But within Illustrator, there are a huge library of all kinds of things. In the swatches panel, if we come over to here, we're going to see what's called the library icon. If I click on that, I get a large list of a bunch of different color swatches, all with different themes. We have an art history theme, we have earth tones, we have foods, metal, patterns, skin tones, all kinds of things, web colors. Another common one that's used by graphic designers is right here. It's called color books, and this is where you would find all your Pantones. So these are pretty universal color swatches used across the printing industry. I'll go ahead and click on the Pantone plus CMYK coded, just see what that brings up. Dear Lord, that's so many color swatches. So many choices. Okay, so if you're working on a project and you want a full selection of colors, this is where you would go. I'm going to go ahead and open up the Swatches panel again. And notice I'm going to come in here to the Pantones and I'll just start clicking on colors. And you can see it's adding it to my Swatches panel. So I could decide, hey, I don't want all these colors. I'm working on a project and I just want a very limited amount of swatches to work with on this project. I could start choosing the color swatches that I need to use. Let's say these are the only colors I need to use for this project. I could delete the ones that I don't need. So I'll click from here, hold down on the shift key and click over here and delete those. I'll say yes, and then I'll actually delete these color groups I made. Yes, I'll delete those. And I'm just left with these. I can go ahead and shift select those. Okay, come up to the options icon and save swatch library. And I could save it as maybe the project that I'm working on. So that's another way to take colors from a library and use them in creating your own project library. I'll go back into the swatch library and just bring your attention to the fact that it's not only fill colors that we can choose from, but also gradients. And we'll be going over gradients a little bit more in later chapters, but just know there's a whole library of different kinds of gradients. Let's say I want to keep working with earth tones. I can pull this tab into this other dock and kind of toggle between those. I'll close out the Pantones and I'll go back to the library. Let's go ahead and look up skin tones so you can see it already opened it in this tab. Alright, so hopefully that gives you guys a good way of finding your colors and then saving the colors that you want to use on a regular basis.